I'm going to bet a lot of you watching at home right now are just a little bit fed up with Donald Trump and his actions. I'm going to bet you want Democrats to do something about it. Now, if that sounds like you, and I'm just guessing here, you're not alone. Just right now, some new polling out from NBC News shows that 54% of voters disapprove of Trump's handling of the economy. That's the worst number he's ever seen, dating back to his first term. And a whopping 82% of voters say the state of the economy is either fair or poor. So basically, most people aren't happy. But what do they want to do about it? That's always the question. Well, the poll also found that the majority of Democrats want their leaders to wake the hell up and fight back. Just 32% of Democrats say they want their members of Congress to make compromises with Trump, while 65% say they want leaders to stick to their positions, even if it means not being able to get things done in Washington. Now, that's important to note. Why? Because it's the total opposite of where those numbers stood back in 2017. Because guess what, Toto? We're not in 2017 anymore. Things have changed, but unfortunately, not every Democratic leader seems to have gotten that message. We saw that this week when Chuck Schumer and 9 other Democrats voted with Republicans to advance a continuing resolution that keeps the government open through September. Schumer says a government shutdown would have been a worse option. Really? You really think that? I mean, how much worse could it get? They're already closing down agencies and firing people. So, worse? At the end of the day, no matter what reason he may give, Schumer backed down from the fight. That's the bottom line. This wasn't about what happens on the other side of the shutdown. It was the fight regarding the shutdown. He waved the white flag. He handed Trump a win. And Democrats are pissed. Just listen to this response from House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries on Friday.
Is it time for new leadership in the Senate?
Next question.
Have you lost confidence in him, the fact that you guys see this so differently?
Next question.
A bit of a sidestep, but then again, folks, not really. Schumer's former leadership partner, Nancy Pelosi, also took a swipe, saying, quote, "This false choice that some are buying instead of fighting is unacceptable." AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, also went after Schumer, saying there is a deep sense of outrage and betrayal, and calling this a huge slap in the face. And whispers of a primary challenge or leadership challenge, as a matter of fact, are getting louder. So, folks, here is the deal. Bear with me for a second. I think I'm having a bit of a deja vu. I don't know about you. The year is 2009. Democrats are at the peak of their powers. Republicans are in retreat, in a tailspin, confused and not knowing what to do. There are signs of voter backlash everywhere. The transformative agenda that's being pursued in Washington is not being accepted by the people on the ground. Sound familiar? We saw that backlash in the polls. We saw it at town halls. And we saw it in Congress. Sounding even more familiar? Back then, Republicans rode that wave of resistance to a historic midterm landslide. I know a little bit about that. So today, the question for Democrats is this. Do they join the backlash, lean into the resistance, and fight for the frustrated voters, or do they keep waving the white flag? Joining me now is the host of the Bulwark podcast, Tim Miller, and special correspondent for Vanity Fair, Molly Jong-Fast. Okay, folks, this is a 1-2 punch on this subject, so I actually could just sit back and just let Tim riff and Molly, clean up on aisle 9 here. But I'll get a little bit specific with you, Tim. Trump said he appreciates Schumer and that he did the right thing. Does that tell you everything you need to know about this situation right now?
That does tell you everything you need to know. And my congressman down here, Troy Carter, is a Democrat from New Orleans, sent a picture that tells you everything you need to know, which was Schumer kind of like angrily pointing at Trump while Trump just smiled, right, from the Oval Office last week. And like, that's kind of where they were at. That's where people are at right now. Schumer folded. He made a little bit of a stink, but didn't actually get anything, didn't force Trump to the negotiating table. And you can bet Trump was smiling when he was sending that bleat. And if you're the Democratic leader in the Senate and you're making Trump smile like that and you're having him congratulate you, well, then you made some mistakes. Here's the thing, Michael. You were talking about that Tea Party wave in 2010. And I think about that because I was on the other side of this token back then, right? And there were times where I was, in the more establishment on the Republican side saying, come on, you Tea Party guys are going too far, all right? Like, this is too crazy. Like, you've pushed us too far to the brink with these government shutdown threats. And so I understand, like, the logic of that, right? That you're a Democratic senator and you think that the right thing to do is prevent a shutdown and be responsible and, understand political limitations. But like, we're just not in that world anymore. And like, you have and the thing that those Tea Party candidates got right was that, as a politician, you have an obligation to be responsible, but you also have an obligation to represent the rage and the anger of the people that have put you there. And these Democratic senators and House members have a huge base of people behind them who are pissed, and they're right to be pissed because Donald Trump is tearing this government apart with Elon Musk, and he's doing it illegally, and he's firing people who don't deserve it, and he's hurting the stock market. And you got to, if you're a leader, you have to channel that anger, even if that means that there's going to be some bumps along the way, and there would have been some bumps if he would have fought it. So I just think it was a huge misread, and unfortunately, he did not learn the lessons that we learned living through 2010, Michael.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly the framing here, Molly, because you had Schumer out there talking about a shutdown would be worse, and I'm looking around me, as I said in the opener, dude, you're already strip mining the federal government. You got, 60,000 people in one agency have been told don't come to work. I mean, so how much worse could it have been?
Well, I think Tim has a really good point here, right? You're not royalty. You serve at the pleasure of the people who put you in that office, and it is your job as an elected leader to reflect that. And I'm sorry that it's inconvenient and that it makes people uncomfortable, but everywhere I go in New York, I keep seeing protests. I keep walking through protests. So obviously people are not happy. And the question is, I understand it makes a lot of these older members very uncomfortable, but it is their job to represent their constituents. And I think I always ask myself, what would a Mitch McConnell have done in this situation, right? Because I don't think Mitch McConnell would be like, you're right, I don't want to cause any damage, let's just keep going here, right? I just feel like that would not be what Mitch McConnell would have done,
No.
nor would a Harry Reid, Nancy Pelosi combo. I mean, we are here because we are not having the kind of leadership that reflects the party base. And again, Democrats have this problem. They run from their base, whereas Republicans are hostages to their base.
That brings a smile to my face when I'm sitting there thinking about how even within the minority, Mitch McConnell still knew how to play the game and how to get the win. Tim, as we've seen him do so many times. So with respect to that, we had Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader, on our show with my colleagues Simone and Alicia on the weekend this morning, and asked him about Chuck Schumer. Let me just play a little bit of what he said.
We haven't had a conversation since that vote. I do expect to have a conversation with him at some point later on today. Look, Chuck and I disagreed as it relates to the approach and outcome relative to what we viewed as a reckless Republican spending bill. At the same period of time, Chuck and I agree on the overwhelming majority of issues moving forward, including our effort to oppose the largest potential Medicaid cut in American history.
So I followed up, Tim, with him on that and said, well, the tactics here are the thing. Yeah, you can all, say that Medicaid coverage in that fight is going to be important, but you thought he had your back on this one. What makes you think he's going to have your back on that one? I mean, what do you think, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the minority leader there, Hakeem Jeffries, is in a tough spot, right? Because it's not like Chuck Schumer is going to be overthrown next week, as much as at least some people might wish, and so he's going to have to work with him on this fight, on the next big fight, right? And I think that Hakeem is right. There will be fewer Democrats in the Senate. God willing, I hope zero. Who knows? Maybe Fetterman or maybe one or two would go along with the next bill, which will include the Medicaid cuts and the extension of the tax cuts, so I understand that he's going to feel like he's going to need to fight with Schumer on that, and so doesn't want to alienate him. But I think the same message I had for Schumer, I guess I kind of have for Jeffries, right? Again, like, part of this is the policy and the tactics. Part of this is channeling the rage. Part of this is doing politics, playing politics, giving people something to rally around, giving people a strong talking point on what you're going to fight for. And I think that that's an area where Jeffries can improve too. One last thing just on the Mitch McConnell thing. I was just laughing here listening to Molly, thinking about, can you imagine Barack Obama ever sending a tweet going, "Thank you to Mitch McConnell for folding, and I really appreciate you." And so you just have to recognize what world we're in and play the game by the rules that they're playing it by.